Welcome to Soul of Travel. I am so excited and happy to be sitting down today with Komal Darira, and she is the founder of Women for World, which is a travel organization or really more of a travel community that aims at creating safer, sustainable travel and memorable experiences that really empower especially women to be a part in the industry and as travelers. So I'm so excited to bring you into this conversation today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as we begin our conversation, I would love to give you the space to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are in the space of travel right now and what you're working on.
Sure. So a very warm namaste, everyone. My name is Komal, and it spells like Komal. And this is a general introduction I've been giving from years that I am your tour guide from India. But today I just want to say that I am from India and I've been working in the travel and tourism industry from past 8 years. Yes, this is my 8th year in the industry. And if you talk about my background, I live in Delhi, the capital of India. I was born and brought up here. I did my education in journalism because I was very keen to be a journalist. I wanted to find out what's going on in the world with the dream to interview Barack Obama one day. That was my dream, and that is why I wanted to be a journalist. But then later on, I was introduced to the world of tourism by a simple job which was out there on the newspaper, and I went for the interview. And that is how I started my journey in the travel and tourism as a tour guide. And I was very fortunate that I was given this opportunity at such a young age. So I was 19 years old when I became the first tour guide, first female tour guide at Delhi Urban Adventures, which is one of the brands that does day tours. So this is how my journey started in travel and tourism. And then one year, when I started my journey in tourism, I was like, I just want to earn, and that's why I'm here, like a general student does in the university. But I still remember the time when I realized this is it. This is the job I want for my life. Was when I met a lady. She traveled 80 countries all around the world, and she was the first one I traveled with. And I was taking her around, and I still remember she told me one thing, or she inspired me, that life is not just to live, life is all about exploring. And that is what opened up my eyes. I started thinking differently. And this is how I realized that tourism can shape my life in a completely different way. So from different past 8 years, I led a lot of teams in urban adventures. I was a manager. And 2 years back in this pandemic, when I lost my job myself, I realized that life is not just about going to an office and coming back. Life is about creating an impact. And I still remember one of the questions that my mentor asked me. His name is Nikki Vinogradov, and he asked me one question, Christine, that where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself working in a company, getting afraid of getting fired again when it's a pandemic? Or do you see yourself creating a company where there's no fear? And I realized it that I see myself doing something good. I see myself creating a kind of atmosphere or a kind of community where people feel like they're like home, they're at home, where I can motivate young girls to travel, where I can empower young minds to get into the industry without the fear of what is going to happen next. And this is how Women for World came into existence. And I'm so fortunate that I got partnered with Srishti, who's my co-founder, and we together started this journey of Women for World. Been 2 years, did so many good things, hosted so many amazing people, getting so much support from the people from all corners of the world. And yes, we're just trying to grow every single day. So this is Komal, like in these 8 years, from being a tour guide to a founder of a brand now.
Yeah. Thank you for so much for walking us through that. It's really interesting that you started with a journalism background. I have the same space when I first went to college. That's also what I wanted to
Yeah.
study. And I think that it's it's interesting in that people that have that journalistic tie, I think really have this deep curiosity and also really want to connect and want to tell a story. So I think that people that come into the industry from that space really create something different. What do you think that, what has that done for you on your path?
So, what has journalism helped me to do things in my path? I would say I was doing journalism and communications. And what I wanted to be was PR. That was my dream job, that I want to be a public relation officer. But then when I got this job as a tour guide, I thought this is the best PR one could be. I am not just the PR of a company, but I am the PR of my country. And later I realized that journalism and communication helped me to connect with people, to tell them what's happening in the country, because I wanted to change their perceptions. And that's what journalism does. I mean, good journalism does. So that is something which is very rare nowadays, but that is what journalism does. It has a power to change the perceptions of the people about something. It's a tool. It's a great power, and I realize I can use this power and the knowledge which I have to change people's perception about my beautiful country, and to shape different kind of perceptions, and then to change the way they see India. And this is how journalism has helped me to outdo my past or to do things better than I would have generally.
Yeah, I love that. I just think it was such a, also, I really resonate with when you realize that tourism helps you tell the story of where you're from.
Exactly.
I had the opportunity of leading a trip really early on in the state of Montana, which is in the northwestern US where I'm from. And it was this first time of like seeing a place that I knew well through somebody else's eyes and then getting to
Yeah.
tell them really like my personal story about the destination, which for them, they could have come and learned about the landscape and the geology and the history and things like that. But I'm like, this is where I learned to ride a horse with my grandparents. And this is like,
Exactly.
it's just so different when you have that storytelling and that deep personal connection, and then that wish to kind of paint the most beautiful picture of your home and share it with somebody else.
Exactly. I
Thank,
agree. I agree completely to it.
thank you. Well, you talked about becoming one of the first female, or becoming the first female tour leader with this company. What why, I guess, why up until this point were women not involved in this part of tourism? I know this is a big part of your journey, is bringing more women into this industry and creating gender equity in the industry. What barriers were in place prior to you taking that position, and what are you helping to create now?
Um, so when you talk about 8 years back, India, I always say India is a huge country, and every year we see something changing, from political things to mindset. It is a small shift, but it does change. And when I wanted to be a tour guide, or you can say I wanted to take this job, mindset was one of the biggest barriers, because the problem is, Christine, the roots. The roots never taught us that tourism is a job opportunity. The roots in India always taught us that it's good to be an engineer, it's good to be a teacher, but it's bad to be a tour guide, because for a female to be a tour guide, it's a big no. Tour guide is meant for males. I remember one of the things told to me on the streets when I was leading a tour, that have you ever heard anybody notifying a tour guide with she? We always say a tour guide is a he. So how can you take this opportunity? And that particular question was a big question mark on our mindset, on the mindset of the society we live in. And that was one of the biggest barrier that I had to overcome when I took up this job and opportunity. Another thing which is a big barrier, and your question that why were women not hired before, I was very fortunate to be working with open minded people who showed me the way. Like, it's always not men pulling women down. It's never like that. Anybody can pull you down, but there were a lot of men at that time who supported me to grow, who told me that it's not gender specific, relax, you can be a tour guide. And they were looking for people, but they never got the right female to start the thing with. And when I interviewed, trust me, Christine, I always mention it every single place that if I would have interviewed myself, I would have never hired me. That was my performance at the interview. But then also they see the potential that I want to learn, I want to grow, and they gave me the opportunity. And that is what I learned from that first opportunity, that if you give the opportunity to a young mind, they feel empowered. And that is how you grow this community. That is how you spread the word about tourism. And that is what changed my life and inspired me to work towards gender equity, because I got this opportunity myself at a very young age. And then there was no looking back. They hired more females. When I became the manager, my agenda was to do 50-50 in my team. And I outdone that. There was a time when I had 70% female in my team to 30% male. And that was not intentional. But that was because young girls were really looking forward to do something like that. They were finding it fun, knowledgeable. And this is something which now has changed. And I feel very, very, very proud to share it with you that India now has become more like there's a lot of acceptance in the industry, which was not at the time when I was working. I remember walking in on the streets and people coming to me and saying this to me, that you're stealing my job. This is not for you. Or some of your friends or your relatives coming to you and telling you, oh, you could have been an engineer, you were so good in academics, why to stand in the front of the monument? It's not a job for you. So this was the level they used to see tour guide at. And my agenda in these years has been to upgrade that level in the eyes of the Indian people and to change that mindset. And from the day I became a tour guide, I remember, Christine, 3 years I worked without listening to anyone. I fought it out. And after 3 years, I still remember that day that changed the perceptions of the entire society, when the journalist of National Geographic was sitting at my home. It was the festival of colors, Holi, and she was interviewing my mom and dad, that they are so brave that they listen to their daughter and they just uh, gave her passion a chance. And I remember my mom was literally having tears in her eyes that I did it. And since then, everybody wants their daughters to be tour guide, or everybody comes to me and asks, what do you do? I want my children to be the way you are. And this is what changes with time. So I gave it time. And now, after so many years, what my agenda has always been, being a manager, being a tour guide, and now as a founder of Women for World, to spread this word out there in a lot of universities, wherever the social media platforms are, so that the girls who have the passion and who don't have the courage to speak it up, I bring stories from like you do, like you bring so many beautiful stories from all corners of the world, and that inspires all of us. And this is what I've been trying to do, to bring stories that inspires them, motivates them to follow their passion. And yes, this is how I'm trying to bring a small change in the society and bring more equity by talking more about it, by raising awareness about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, and especially the moment of that interview and what that meant to you and to your parents to kind of have that recognition. I agree. I think those are like seemingly small moments that can create a huge shift. I remember another woman that I interviewed that works in Uganda to bring women into male-driven occupations like being a mechanic or electrician, because they're higher paid and they're higher in demand. And similar, like so much resistance. Why are you taking the work that's meant for a man? Why aren't you doing this other thing that is expected of you? And one young girl became the main electrician in their village. And when her dad got to say, like, my daughter is the electrician, is the most, like, one of the most valued members in our community, that shifting that mindset to see daughters in those roles, I think is huge. And to see that from that parental sense of acknowledgement and accomplishment, I think is really important both for both generations, I think, in changing that narrative.
I agree. I completely agree to it. And I've seen that shift in my parents' mindset myself. And I feel very proud that I was able to change some minds, and I'm working every day so that some young girls would be changing their mindset. And that is how we're going to spread the word.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, I mean, for me personally, when I travel, I seek out connecting with other women. And I have had hard time finding female guides when I go to places for, many different reasons. And I think it is so important when you're telling the story of a destination and when you're coming as a traveler to learn, to be able to hear more parts of the story. And I also think women really connect with other women. And so I think that is also really important. Have you seen that response as you've been guiding, and or have people told you that they connect differently with a female guide versus a male guide? I feel like women are really inherent like nurturers and storytellers, and they really kind of dive into, like I was talking about earlier, like this is the story of me growing up here versus, this is the history. There's just like a different way, I think, of showing the story.
Exactly. And I completely agree to it because I still remember when I went for the first time as a tour guide and I entered the hotel. That was my first tour. And the lady literally shouted and said, "Oh, it's a girl." And I was literally shocked that, okay, why? And she said, because I've traveled to India 3 times and I've never seen a female tour guide. And here you go. And that kind of response, as I think every woman who's a tour guide in India would have got that kind of response. And that changes a lot of perceptions because if a woman is traveling and she's a solo female traveler, obviously there's so many perceptions that are built in India, so many guidelines that are sent to the travelers when they travel to India, especially solo female travelers. And then seeing a woman on the other side who's going to take you around, big relief. It's such a big relief. And I've seen that relief on the faces of not only women, but I have seen men uh, getting very excited to see a female tour guide because they want to see India from a woman's eye, or they want a freshness in the opinions so that they can ask different questions to them. And that kind of shift I've seen in the tourism, and I've seen it with the women who I have worked with, and I have experienced that myself too. That people feel very comfortable, as you said that with having being a woman, it's like you do talk more about stories. You do try to indulge people into the situations, into the things, and that is what makes it special. And I always say it's always good to see a country from a woman's eye, and that doesn't mean that men are bad at their jobs, not at all, but it's always a new perception and a new perspective, so one should always try it.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
I think really important that the opportunity is available, because like you mentioned, it wouldn't have been a possibility, and for people that want to have that experience, I think it's really important. Well, I would love to start to talk a little bit more about Women for World. I know that that began in 2020 in the pandemic, really to inspire and empower young girls to travel in India and to create community, but has really evolved from that space. Can you tell me a little bit more about where the idea for this community came from?
Yes. I remember it was the start of pandemic in the March when the entire tourism got shut. We were all at our homes. And I remember it was giving me anxiety because I was seeing my friends losing their jobs. I was seeing everybody feeling very distressed. It was happening everywhere in the world. And we were so helpless at that time. And at that time, what inspired me, I was talking to my mentor, Nikki, and I told him that I'm getting very anxious. I don't have any work. Obviously, I had a job, but there was no work at the job. So what should I do? So he said, maybe think of building something of your own. because, or maybe working on your dream. And then I sat and I asked myself, what do I aim at? Like, what is my vision? Like, where do I see myself? And that is how this story came into my mind. I remember I invested 2 months to write things down on where do I see myself in 5 years? What is my vision? When I die, what do I want to, like, I remember one of the questions which was asked to me, that when you die, you're on your deathbed, there are people standing all around you. What do you want them to think about you? Do you want them to feel inspired? Do you want them to feel like, okay, she was just an employee or whatever? But then it gave me a vision. And that is why once I was sitting with all the things listed down, that I want to inspire young girls. This is what was lacking when I was there. I didn't have any help. I want to be that support to the young minds, that it is possible if you want to. And that is how Women for World came into the picture. And I remember this name just came to my mind like that. I mean, people were asking me, what would you name it? What would you name it? And I said, it would be Women for World. And I don't know, it was just something, a thought in my mind. And then people started asking me the meaning of it. And I said, it's like an organization or a community run by women for all the people all around the world, for men, women, anybody from any part of the world, like for transgenders, for people from LGBTQ plus community. We want to be there for everyone. So I got a lot of resistance to this name, that why to name your company Women for World? No men would like to travel with you. This was the first answer I got when I named it. And I said, when we can work with the companies that are owned by men, then why are you feeling resistant to travel with the women? Like, why is there? And that is the problem. This is the root cause I want to raise up. And that is why the name is Women for World. If you cannot accept the name, so how are you going to accept women in the industry? It's just a name. And this is how I started. This was my first step in creating acceptance in the industry. So this is how Women for World came into existence. And I talked it out with Srishti and she got involved in it. We built it up. We started by telling stories of the young girls. Like, I remember an 18-year-old girl who fought her family and she did her first trek. And I wrote her story down. And a lot of young girls got inspired that, wow, if she can do it, why can't we? That I started connecting with different kind of women all around the world who can share their stories and motivate people. And then one day I realized that I want to make people feel this essence. So I should take people out to travel. In the pandemic, I took out my first trip. It was a full departure. All the young people joined us. It was a tour led by women, and men also joined. And it was a great answer to the people in the industry that anybody is happy to travel with Women Forward because we are giving good services. We are trying to create responsible experiences, and we are trying to create a kind of new experience that would bring knowledge on the table as well, along with travel. And this is what I want to change in the mindset of the Indian people when they travel. And this is how we built Women for World. It's been 2 years. And now, as the industry is open, the borders are opening, and I'm so thankful that it is happening. We are looking forward to bring more changes in the thing. And that is how Women for World came into the picture.
Yeah. Thank you for walking us through that. I love the starting point, and I think probably very similarly to many people in this industry. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was this moment for really reconnecting to what we want for ourselves and for the industry on a whole. And that process, I do a similar process all the time where I think really about what I want my daughters to say about me. Like if I envision them introducing or talking about me to their friends when they're older, that's my kind of gauge. I'm like, oh, well, I want them to be able to say this or be proud of this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I really use that as a way of thinking about, not that the thing isn't important to me, but like, I just really imagine that as this kind of way to think about the impact that I want to create. So I love that you started there with like really envisioning what is this end goal or this end image look like, and then working towards it. I think that can really inspire other people who are listening to this conversation, because I know a lot of times we have a hard time, like, I think we really feel what we want, and it's hard to put words around it. And so doing an exercise like that can help you to like make it a more attainable goal. And then thinking about the resistance that you initially had just to the name of Women for World. I think that's really interesting as well. And, you know, how you worked through that, and really recognizing that while you want this to be a women focused conversation, you want the participants to be everyone. And I think that's something that comes up a lot, is that we can't change and impact gender equity if we don't have conversations that include males and bring everyone into the conversation. So I love that you brought that up, and that you're already really seeing that in the context of your business.
Thank you so much, Christy. It means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you mentioned that you started with experiences. So I know that Women for World really offers 4 different things, which are experiences, workshops, virtual tours, and education and awareness. So for our listeners, let's just start with the experiences. You said you wanted to focus on sustainability, and then also really creating these unique experiences. What happened after you ran this first trip, and where did you go from there?
So when I did my first trip, I was looking at the pattern, and I've always worked in the inbounds. I've always worked for the people outside India. It was a difficult task to make an experience for Indians because the mindset is very different. So I started with a small experience, and I remember we connected with a lady, and she was a specially abled lady, and she used to draw with her feet. I met her in Rishikesh. We did an interview with her, and we decided we want to support her through the trip. And this was our aim, that on every trip, we are going to support some women oriented organization from day one. We're going to keep this as our value. And this is how we based our experience. Our experiences were fun, were a mix of knowledge, and also we were focusing on reducing over tourism and taking people to the places which deserves attention and where you won't find any attention. And that is how we shaped the first trip. It was a big success, and then we moved on to the second trip, which is very special to my heart, because we took people to a village where they stayed in a home, where they learned about village life. Villages are essence of India. And then taking people to a community based tourism to talk about sustainability, to talk about responsibility towards the villages, towards your culture, and how to preserve it. I remember all the 7 people were shocked. Even though they lived in India, they didn't even know about this place. They didn't even know about the cultural food. And I felt very proud that I was able to do that. But again, when you're trying to create such products, people sometimes don't welcome it. It was a big task to put it out in front of the Indians and say that book it in. Nobody wanted to book it. But then also we got some of the people who were interested, and we started with small groups. And then the pandemic happened again. We again got locked down. So it was a big phase. So this is, if you talk about the experiences, we will focus on 3 things on the experiences. One is sustainability, because we really want to focus on creating a sustainable environment and focus on building local places. And that is what we are doing on all the experiences. Every product of ours focus on sustainability, educate our travelers, plastic usage, and so many things that are related to climate that can lead to the destruction of the earth one day. But if we focus on it right now, we would be on the right path. Another is community. We want to improve community based tourism and to support women who are working in the communities and to create opportunities for them. And third, obviously, to make fun and memorable experiences, because that is what we travel for. So these are the 3 pillars that our experiences focus on, not only for Indians, but for now people coming from outside India. And we offer all these kind of things.
Yeah.
That is what we focus on, our experiences.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really interesting too. I think a lot of many countries have rediscovered their own culture and heritage and kind of found these undiscovered moments because of the pandemic and not being able to travel outside of our country. And I love that, while that might not have been a goal initially, because you maybe would have been bringing foreign travelers, to these areas, I think it's really amazing that you're really able to introduce these different communities within India to each other. And like you said, this just creating this recognition of what the villages have to offer and the parts of the culture that maybe are being lost in the cities. And I think we find that in the US and in many, many other countries. And so I love that that has been your experience. Then I know that you had some great success with your virtual tours. And I think you mentioned to me you offered over 400, which seems mind-boggling to me. How did that evolve? Who was taking these tours, and what was your experience and expectation with these?
When the tourism industry got introduced to the virtual tours, the first reaction was, no, it's not working. For everyone, like for me, I was also like, no, I don't want to spend my time creating these experiences. But later on, I realized the power of technology in the pandemic, that how virtual tours are helping people to stay out of depression, how virtual tours are helping people to understand the city better. Maybe they would want to travel in future. How virtual tours are educating people. And that was wondrous. And that is what inspired me to create virtual tours. And I started with a small virtual tour, and that was a cooking virtual tour. I got a great response on it because people from, I remember my first client was from United Kingdom, and she was super excited to to cook with me. She had all the ingredients, and we were talking for an hour. We were making chai, we were doing gossips, and she said that she felt like she was in my kitchen and that she lives alone. And it's so cool that she could talk to me for an hour. It's a great start to her day. And that inspired me that we should create more experiences right now. And we should take virtual tours are a great way to connect with the audience, to show them what your country has. And wherever you travel, to show them the heritage, to show them the culture, to show them the cuisine and every other thing. And also, it's a great way to create a market, like to market yourself out there, so that once the borders open up, people can connect with you if they like your services and they can join you. So our virtual tours, our main clientele has always been United Kingdom, US, and Australia. People from these regions, you can say mostly English speaking countries, because people really like to come with us and travel with us. Like our cooking tours are a big hit. My one of my colleagues, Pallavi, does a mandala session where she tells people how art can heal your body, and it has worked wonders. Christine, people has given such great feedbacks to us. We have got 500 plus reviews till now on different kind of platforms where we are, and it's been a great journey. We are getting such good response. People love our perceptions. People love to hear the story of a woman living in Delhi. They can ask us questions, and we try to take them to the markets. We try to take them for festivals. We try to take them for weddings, so that they can experience Indian weddings. And this has been a great tool for changing perceptions of people about your country, so that once everything is fine, they can come and we can host them. So virtual tours are a great strength, and I don't think they're going anywhere, because they are a great educational tool as well. The universities have started using it to educate their children, to educate their students on what is happening in the world right now. And who better than guides can do this? So yeah, this is how virtual tours have shaped a great, has put a great shift to the business, and has been a great way for us to sustain ourselves in the time of pandemic when nothing was supporting us.
There's so many great things in what you were just saying. I was thinking about one, accessibility, which in travel is a topic that I think is much more to the forefront, whether it's, a financial barrier or a physical barrier that might not allow you to have these experiences. It really creates more accessibility. It also, I think, goes twofold. I mean, guides maybe would never have interacted with certain travelers, just depending
Exactly.
on, their length of stay. Like this just creates open doors to so many more opportunities. And then as you were talking about this cooking experience, that level of intimacy and connection, when you have 10 people standing around you doing a cooking class, you maybe aren't having that sense of connection. And even if we're virtual and there's 10 other people cooking with us, I still feel like
Yeah,
I'm getting my one-on-one connection to you on my screen. And so I think, yeah, that level of connection that you're really wanting to create is, it seems like counterproductive that virtual wouldn't create connection, but I think many of us have seen, I've certainly seen through just this podcast, through speaking to women like yourself, I think none of this would have happened if we didn't have this technology. And so I
exactly.
I agree with you that I don't think it's going anywhere. I think people are going to figure out how to do it better, to do it more efficiently, easier, reach greater
Exactly.
audiences. And I think
Exactly.
it's really important.
Exactly. That's agreeable. I just want to add something to it that with one of the I was giving a virtual tour. I was in a cultural festival which happens in rural part of India, and one of the ladies told me that she had cancer and she didn't travel from past 7 years. And but now through virtual tours, she feels like she's in a new city every single day, and she feels lively. She feels like she wants to stand up. She feels like motivated. And I also do dance sessions where I get comments like, I never danced in these 5 years because I never had anybody to dance with. But now when I see you dancing, I feel like standing up. I smile. I feel happy. And this is what travel is, isn't it? Changing people's perception and bringing joy in their life. And this is what we're trying to do through our virtual tours.
Yeah, thank you. I just think it's so amazing. And I think many of us felt that initial resistance, but I really love seeing what people have created and the idea of attending a festival or a wedding, which even if I were traveling in India, might not be something that I
Exactly.
would have access to. And so I think it's really amazing to think about how to do that. And then to add a layer of education to it as well. So it feels
Exactly.
like it's a very balanced exchange, that you're not exploiting your culture to share these experiences, but you're able to create education and awareness and bring people into those spaces.
Agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and then you have workshops that you're offering. And so the workshops, as I understand it, are really geared towards bringing women into the industry, creating mentorships, looking at how you can create gender equity across the board. What have you done more specifically in those workshops?
So the first workshop which we hosted was on tour leading and guiding because we wanted to change the students' perception on guiding. And how can you do that? You can do that by telling them your story, and that is what we focused on. I still remember that generally when you go to the university, what do you learn? You learn it in the books. Who is a tour guide? A tour guide is a person who takes you to the places and tells you about it. But in reality, who is a tour guide? A tour guide is a brand ambassador of the country who tells you the stories that changes perception about you or about the country you are in. And that is the real job of a tour guide. And that is what we are trying to do with our workshops. We're trying to shape the mindset of the younger generation. And we are trying to tell this to the young girls that if you're planning to be a tour guide, come with us for a mini internship and understand in 2 days who a tour guide is. And if you think this is the job for you, maybe you can polish your skills more. So this is how we started with. And I remember we started our first workshop and we got a good bunch of students, around 20, men and women both. And they learned so much that today one of them is leading, and she's a female. She's leading the groups and she's so young. She texts us and she tells us that she's so proud of what she's learned from us, and she's following our footsteps. And it feels so special when we are able to do that in just an year. So till now, we have done so many workshops on communication, on tour guiding, on mentorship, where we provide mentorship to the students on entrepreneurship, on how they can polish their skills, and all the other factors that helps them to shape their future. And obviously, I've always been there personally for all the girls who contact me and who wants to learn from me, who are young and who need a person who wants, who can be a guidance for them. So we try to do that, and we try to support the young minds as much as we can, because I remember nobody was there to support me at that time, and I can be that support. So I would be able to help them to shape their futures better and more efficiently. So this is what we are doing through our workshops. In these 1 year, we have given workshop to over 100 students, and a lot of them are following their passion now. Like 30% of them are still in contact with us. And this makes me feel so proud that one of the visions which we had is to empower young minds, and especially girls, with the knowledge so that they can follow their passion. We are trying to do that with our workshops, and we hope we'll continue to do that in future as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you. What I love most about that is really feeling your passion for this and what it is for you to get to bring this into the world. And I kind of was imagining, the 19-year-old version of yourself who didn't have that support. And I think we often create what we wish we had. And
Exactly.
so I love that you are really getting to show up and be the mentor and the leader that you were seeking when you entered this path.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
And the last thing is kind of tied into the workshops, but really with education and awareness, looking at gender equality, wages, creating more acceptance across the board. What are some of the bigger goals that you are really working towards as a community?
There are four variables, and you can say they are also the sustainable development goals on which our values are set up. Number one is gender equality and creating more acceptance. As I told you, our name itself is creating more acceptance, and we are trying to create more acceptance to our name. So wherever I talk, wherever I go, wherever I communicate, I try to raise awareness. So this is one of the most important things and agendas of Women for World, so that we can create more acceptance, and more acceptance would create more opportunities for the other genders, and hopefully would bring more equality in the industry. That is one of the things which we are focusing on. Another thing, to create educational experiences and not just fun experiences. We want fun and education both, because what is it? Travel without knowledge. Travel is always a great uh, education. I always say, if you want to get educated about a country, don't Google it, or try to talk to a tour guide there. That person can tell you more about that place rather than Google. So education is one of the most important factors which we are working on, and through our workshops and through our virtual tools as well. We are trying to shape the mindset of the world towards our country, and yes, trying to bring a better perspective out there, that how this country is changing. Third value which we are focusing on is sustainability, which is so important right now. We cannot, you cannot actually grow if you are not working on sustainability. You cannot think of a future without sustainability, because it's not only related to us, it's about the entire planet, its creators, its people. And sustainability is something which we focus on whenever we even create a small workshop. We always put a factor of sustainability in it. The more we educate people, the better the messages. That is what we work on. And fourth is responsibility towards your environment, towards the traveling country you are traveling to, and responsibility of travelers and of a tour guide. So these are the four pillars which we are working on, and which we aim towards working on when we think of building our brand, building our community, and expanding our community to other parts of India and also the world. And yes, one of the things which we aim at right now is, if we are even getting people out there on experiences, we want them that at the end of the tour, they should feel like they learned something, and they should feel proud that they did a tour with us. That feeling of happiness and that feeling of pride should be there when they leave India. And yes, that is how we shape our experiences.
Yeah. You know, what I keep thinking about too is through this process, not only are you, bringing more women into this space and educating in general, but I think you're also creating more of an understanding of the value of guides, which I think is also something that is missing in the industry across the board. I've had other conversations about that as well on the podcast, but really understanding, like you said, that the guides are these global ambassadors of your country, and it's really important that they do have the education and support in the industry, and then that also the guides themselves have a sense of that responsibility and the power that they wield to tell the story of their destination. So I love that seems like that is kind of built into all of these pieces that you're creating.
Yes, thank you so much, Christine. And that has been my responsibility throughout, because I personally think this is a great getaway. If you're being a guide, you are actually understanding the industry in the best way. And yes, this is what I aim at, to raise more awareness about the tourism industry and also about every job, because no job is gender specific and no job is a low level or a high level. Every job should be treated equally. And this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that can carry far beyond the tourism industry as well, as really looking at not creating that level of inequality across the board, and that if people are really pursuing their passions, that's the most important piece and what they bring to it in connection to their passion. Yeah. Well, before we end our conversation, how can people who want to travel with you virtually or in real life, as that's beginning to happen again, how can they connect with you, or how can people who want to get involved as guides who are looking for mentorship and education, how can they reach you?
Oh, you can reach out to us on our email address. We are also having our website. Our email address is info@womenforworld. So you can always email us. You have our Instagram IDs. I think we would be posting that, Christine, right?
Yes, we'll share that.
So yeah. So we'll be sharing our Instagram. You can also Instagram me. It's KOML0015. Always there to support everybody, whosoever needs our support, because that is how we're going to build ourselves. And also, if you want to travel with us, you can check out our website, or you can directly email us, and we would be more than happy to host you virtually or in live in our country.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like people really will get a sense of the open door that you are creating for people and for these conversations and growing this community. And I hope that anybody who listens that's inspired really takes advantage of that, because I think it's really important. So many of us put ourselves out there and we really are offering that. And I don't think it's always taken advantage of as much as we wish it would be. Like, we really want to create community and invite people in. And so I'll just say that I really hope that people recognize the sincerity in that offer. The last thing that I have before we end the conversation is a series of just kind of rapid fire questions for people to get to understand you a little bit more and you as a traveler. So we'll go through those. What has been a favorite book or movie that offers you a travel escape or inspires you to adventure?
Becoming Michelle Obama. That's a Netflix series, and I am a big Obama fan. So yes, she inspires me to do everything I want, even to travel.
Yeah, well, and I think it's that very much that sense of how we show up when we travel. And I think, yeah, thank you for sharing that. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
A chili spray. Yes, that's a very important thing when you're traveling alone, because I travel alone a lot. So yeah, a chili spray. And yes, I also keep some snacks. I am a big time foodie. So these are the two things which you will find in my bag no matter what.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk a lot about being a solo female traveler in India, but I know that that's something you're really passionate about as well. So people, if
Exactly.
you're curious, that's another spot where you have a lot of experience and wisdom to share. What has been your favorite destination?
I love Rajasthan in India. If we talk about India, I love Rajasthan. I can go there 1,000 times. I can take you there 1,000 times, and every time I will bring a new story. That is how excited I'm always about that place. But if you talk about the world, I would love to travel to Africa. I've been to South Africa, but from the time I was a kid, I have seen wildlife on the TV, and I would love to live in Africa for a year if I get an opportunity to explore the wildlife there, to explore the culture there. I think Africa is full of culture, and I love everything about that entire place. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, my next question was where you still long to visit. So Africa is definitely high on your
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
What do you eat that immediately connects you to a place that you've been?
What do I eat? My first thing about that place, wherever I go, is to go to a local cafe there. That's my list. I always research before I go what is the best place, and that's my first stop. And I love to eat it with the local people. I love to sit with the local people and talk and eat. So it depends. But I love to try coffee. I'm a coffee lover. So wherever I go, I taste coffee, and that makes my perception about the entire country and city or whatsoever. So a coffee everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because it's like a sense of familiarity, but it's also a really new experience wherever you go.
Exactly.
It can be a very new experience some places.
Exactly. Exactly.
Who was the person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
Um, the first person are my parents, my obviously my family. They've always inspired me and made me passionate. And the second person is obviously Praveen. He was my general manager, and he has always focused on pushing me out there. His name is Praveen Tamang, and he has always supported me. And he has always put me into a situation that has made given me no other option but to stand out. So yeah, these two people I'm very thankful to, because without them I wouldn't have been here today.
Yeah, thank you. And the last question is if you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, alive or past, who would it be?
It would be Michelle Obama. I love her. I adore her. And I mean, that's my dream. If I could see her one day, I could talk to her. I mean, I would think I've done good in my life. She
Yeah.
inspires me every single day. So yeah, she's the one.
You. I hope
Yeah.
that we have told the universe enough times today that that's your wish. So maybe it will hear us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I have loved connecting with you and getting to see the work that you're doing, but I'm really grateful to have spent this time having a greater understanding and getting to share this with my listeners.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Christine. What great work you are doing. And thank you for making me a part of this podcast. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You're so welcome.